Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bob Gallagher. I'm the mayor of the city of Bettendorf, Iowa. Today is Good Friday, April 10th, 2020. Welcome to Palmer Grill. As I promised you last week, I'd like to take this opportunity to answer a few questions from you, our viewers, about anything COVID-19 related or other happenings here in the city of Bettendorf. As we get through these troubling times, I really want to engage with our citizens. I thought this would be a great platform to answer some of your questions, so let's get right to it. Our first question is from Jake A. Jake asks, how do the stoplights in Bettendorf get timed? Do we do traffic studies? On my way to work on Devil's Glen Road, the stoplights by the post office, Quick Star, and Riverdale Heights Elementary School all change when no one is sitting at them, even when I get called into work at 2 a.m. Well, thanks for your question, Jake. The city recently hired an independent contractor to do a citywide traffic light study. The company's findings were submitted to the city's traffic light department to begin the process of changing lights where necessary. That process is now 75% done and will be fully implemented by the end of 2020. All traffic lights in Bettendorf are allowed to run free from midnight to 7 a.m. This means that you should not experience a light turning red during this time frame unless it's triggered by something, a passing motorist or pedestrian. In some other cases, it might even be triggered by accidental shadowing from headlights, street lights, or the moon and clouds. I hope that answers your question. Question 2 is from Ann A. Ann writes, hi, Mayor Gallagher. Just curious as to what the timeline is to extend the bike path or walking paths along Middle Road north of Hopewell going out to the TBK Bank Sports Complex. As this is a rather busy thoroughfare, I have concerns about the safety of kids riding on that shoulder. Also, there is a stretch between Middle Road and Forest Grove intersection going west to Devil's Glen Road that could use a bike or walking access due to a very narrow shoulder. Thanks for keeping the city safe during the COVID-19 outbreak with all the shutdowns. Thanks for your question, Ann, and for your comment. We're aware of the needs of the greater pedestrian access in the north portion of our city. That's obviously the booming part of our community. The section of Forest Grove of which you speak was part of a federal grant project, with funding coming in the form of an 80% financial match from the federal government and a 20% local match. Pursuant to the federal guidelines, that section of Forest Grove will be designed this fall, and the bids for construction will be let in 2021. As part of that process, there will be a complete bike trail or rec trail system. At the conclusion of the Forest Grove project, we will design a trail system along Middle Road. I really wish that I could fast track the timing of both of these projects, but the federal funds being provided will save the Bettendorf taxpayers millions of dollars, and therefore we must adhere to the timelines of the federal government in order to receive that grant money. Hopefully that answers your question, Ann. Question number 3 is from Jaron M. Jaron writes, Dear Mayor, we have had several people in the neighborhood burning sticks and other stuff that have fallen during the winter months. Is there any chance you would put a burn ban in place to help those that are symptomatic of the COVID-19 virus, similar to what Carbon Cliff has done? Thanks for your question, Jaron. In fact, Bettendorf City Code 4-3-1 covers the burning of leaves and other material in the city of Bettendorf. It states that leaves, trees, tree trimmings, grass, rubbish, residential waste, or garbage shall not be burned within the city except two exceptions. First, obviously fireplaces, wood-burning stoves, and barbecue grills can be used for the way that they were intended. And second, open fires for cooking and heating, recreation, which may be where you're going, and ceremonies shall only be allowed when such fire is not composed in whole or substantial part of leaves, and the location of the fire and the items necessary for its containment comply with the provisions of the fire code. However, all such fires must be over by 10 o'clock p.m., and no property shall have such a fire more than once in a 7-day period. There are additional provisions of that code section 4-3-1 that I would encourage you to check out. But to simply answer your question, yes, we already have a burn ordinance. Hopefully, I've provided you some helpful information. Thanks again for your question. Our last question for today is from Mike D. Mike asks, Mr. Mayor, can you please give us your perspective of how our local response has been to the coronavirus? I get a lot of national news, and obviously people talk over social media, but I would appreciate your perspective on how things are actually going here locally. Thanks for your question, Mike. Our local COVID-19 coalition, which includes the emergency management agencies from Scott County and Rock Island County, both public health systems, all hospitals in the region, the Chamber of Commerce, Visit Quad Cities, the entire Quad City faith-based community, all school districts from both sides of the river, the Arsenal, and all of our counties, cities, and township government all have done a wonderful job of organizing our COVID-19 response effort. Quad City residents have reason to be very proud of this all-hands-on-deck cooperative approach. In fact, our very own fire chief, assistant chief, Troy Said, is organizing the procurement efforts for things like personal protective equipment, or PPE. Thanks to you, Troy. These efforts and people staying home appear to be working to curb the COVID-19 pandemic. As testing numbers come in, we know that there will be more cases. This is because test results from private labs are still taking up to about 14 days to be reported. But the numbers of positive cases and those who need hospitalization are not rising to the surge levels we are prepared to handle. Our hospitals are prepared for a surge, our health departments are prepared, as is our large and growing volunteer base. The changes we have made in our daily lives are working. Let's stay vigilant. Stay home unless it's absolutely necessary to go out. Through the local efforts of the COVID-19 Coalition, the response from our hospitals, and the work being done by the emergency management agencies, our first responders, and our service providers, our plans have worked, and we are cautiously optimistic that the surge for which we are prepared will never come. Thank you all for your questions. I really appreciate the time you spent in sending it to us. I look forward to doing this again in the very near future. We will continue to take the necessary steps to protect our community from the spread of the coronavirus. For instance, we have now staggered solid waste collection beginning at 4 a.m. I'm sorry, refuse collectors. But this has been done in an effort to limit the exposure and contact of our workforce. So please remember, get your refuse cans and your recycling cans out the night before, because we start at 4 a.m. Not to beat a dead horse, but I cannot stress social distancing enough. It is absolutely necessary if we're going to beat this virus. Please stay 6 feet apart and limit all trips out of your home so we can all get through this pandemic as quickly as possible. Just a reminder that our trail system remains open and our parks are being utilized very frequently. It's great to see so many of you getting outdoors. Doing so helps maintain positive mental health and well-being, which is something we all need right now. That being said, please stay 6 feet apart, even in the great outdoors. We can and we will get through this pandemic together. COVID-19 will not stop this great city. Your city services will continue to operate, and our staff and city council will continue to be here for you around the clock. I look forward to speaking with you again next week. Have a great weekend. Please stay 6 feet apart and symptom-free.